Thanks for coming out today to our session, Optimizing WordPress for Speed and Conversions. My name is David Vogelpohl. I'm going to be moderating and I'm going to be your first presenter. I'm also joined by Ben Metcalfe, and I'll let him explain a little bit about his background later. But before we get started today, I wanted to make sure to do a little housekeeping first. First and foremost, if you want to tweet today, make sure to use the hashtag ASW13. So if Ben or myself mention something that you think is interesting, make sure to tweet about it. And then when you came in, you were handed these review cards. And we really appreciate the feedback we get through these. I've done this session or a variant thereof about 3 times at Affiliate Summit, and every time I find the feedback that you guys leave on these forms very, very helpful. It helps us to adapt the presentation and provide information that's going to be valuable for you. So if you would, circle 10s on the first 2 questions, but even more importantly, give us feedback specifically about how you like the information and maybe information that you would have liked to hear about. We definitely use that when planning these presentations. So some of the feedback we've gotten in the past was related to the technical nature of the content that we share in terms of optimizing your website. So in that vein, I'd like to do a little quick poll. Can I get a show of hands for how many hardcore WordPress developers we have in the audience? Okay, great. So 3 or 4 of you. And then WordPress ninjas, you're pretty good at tweaking themes and stuff like that, but you wouldn't really consider yourself a developer. Okay, a few more. And then people that are business owners, marketing people, you're not really technical at all, but you use WordPress to promote your offers, your websites, or your blogs. Okay, so the majority of people really fell into that category. And so some of the things that I'm going to cover today and Ben's going to cover today are going to have cover different levels. And so if we mention a tip that is a little too technical for where you're at, write it down. When you get back to the office next week, go to your developer and say, do these things. Don't just ignore them because they're over your head. They're very important and they'll help you speed up your website, help you convert more visitors. So write them down and bring them back to your developers when it's time to go back home. So my part of the presentation I titled The Boss's Guide to WordPress Optimization. And I chose that title because whether you're technical or not, you're probably making decisions about the direction of your website and what you should be doing, and that those decisions will impact the performance of your website, and the performance of your website will impact the ability of your website to convert. And so I wanted to kind of take you through the steps of planning your website and the things you're going to do to drive revenue and the impacts that that can have on the performance. Again, my name is David Vogelpohl. You can follow me at davidvmc.com. I come from Austin. I run 2 companies. One of them is Marketing Clique. We do a lot of web development there. WordPress is our primary CMS platform. And then I run another company, our sister company called Tapfire Mobile, and one of the things we do there is mobile web, again, heavy in WordPress. So WordPress is something near and dear to my heart and something that I deal with every day. I'm also actively involved with the online marketing community. Like I mentioned before, I speak at Affiliate Summit, PubCon, I've spoken at WordCamp, I contribute to Marketing Pilgrim, I've contributed to Feedfront Magazine, and then I also run a meetup in Austin called Awesome. So, as the boss, what do you care about? What are the things that drive your decisions with your website? Well, 9 times out of 10, it's probably revenue. How can I make more money out of my website? The problem is that a lot of the ideas that you have for generating more money from your website might be hurting its performance, and that can hurt your ability to earn that money. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is basically considering user experience with your bright ideas. So if you have a new idea for a tool on your site, or a piece of content, or an image, or something like that, you need to consider the impact that that idea is going to have on the performance of your site. And the reason that is because the number one factor influencing user experience is the speed of your website. In other words, if your website's slow, then your visitors aren't necessarily going to stick around. So everything after that is irrelevant. If your visitors are bouncing and you have the best design ever, that doesn't mean anything. And so, there's a stat that basically up to 25% of your visitors might be bouncing away from your website after just 4 seconds of page load time. If you go check your website right now with a tool like webpagetest.org, many of you in this room will have websites that take longer than 4 seconds to load. And so our target there is to try to get it under that 4-second mark, and obviously as low as we can get it, because you can significantly be losing visitors after just 4 seconds of page load time. Bounce rates can have a big impact on your site and your ability to convert visitors. First off, they lower your conversion rates. Your lower conversion rates means that it's more expensive to buy traffic to your website. If more of your visitors are bouncing away, less of them are converting, which means you have to pay more to drive the same number of sales, the same number of people taking you up on your merchant offers, for more money. It can also cause problems with SEO. Specifically, in 2010, the Google Webmaster Central blog posted a blog post in where they indicated that there was a new factor in the ranking algorithm, and they called it page speed. And when you read that and you saw other people speak about it from Google after that, they seemed to indicate that it was almost like a 1-for-1. In other words, if your website was faster than mine, you would outrank mine. But in 2011, Matt Cutts came on a video and basically said that page speed is really only a factor for about 1 in 1,000 websites. Now, for a guy like me that makes his money speeding up websites, that was kind of counterintuitive, not really what I wanted to hear. But what Matt didn't mention was the indirect effects that page load time can have on your search rankings. First and foremost, bounce rate. Bounce rate directly affects your search rankings. Additionally, you have personalized search. If your visitors are bouncing away from your website, they're less likely to +1 it. They're less likely to be engaged with it, which means that for them and their friends or people in their circles on Google+, that your site will be less likely to rank highly for search terms that they might be searching on. So, what's a boss to do? What can you do to influence the performance of your website and the decisions that you make to try to make more money from your offers and the content that you're creating? The first thing that you want to try is to wrangle your tracking scripts. Many of our clients will have 10 different tracking packages they've tried over the years, and every single tracking script is still installed in their theme. So what you want to try to do is pick one analytics package, maybe 2, and stick with it. Don't just install every tool you hear and leave it on your site forever. Set a reminder in your calendaring system to audit your tracking scripts, especially if you have a team. Your team might be going out and installing tracking scripts for different analytics solutions without your knowledge. So once every 6 months or so, set a reminder to go in and look and see if other people have been installing excessive tracking scripts. When you're using pixel and conversion tracking scripts, do that after the closing body tag. So that way it's one of the last things that loads on the page. It doesn't interfere with your content. Now the analytics scripts, you actually want it in your head tag because you want that to load first to kind of track everything else that happens. But the pixel and the conversion scripts, make sure they go after the closing body tag. The other thing you want to do is you want to keep your designer in check. And this is a very difficult thing to do, and sometimes it means even keeping yourself in check. And basically the concept here is less is more. The less graphics you have on a web page, the less dynamic elements you have on a web page, the faster your site's going to load. And so you want to look at things like eliminating animation. If you're having really bad load times and you have a JavaScript slider or something on your site that you're using to display dynamic content, that's probably one of the main reasons your web page is slow. The other thing that you want to do when you can is to use CSS to create buttons and graphics. So if you have a button, instead of making it an image that you've created through Photoshop and that you embed with HTML, use CSS to create that button. The main reason you want to do that is, one, it reduces the number of calls to the server. If a button is an image, then when the page is loaded, that adds to the number of calls that are made to the server. If it's done with CSS, the whole package is delivered when the page is loaded, and the button is generated automatically by the browser. You can check out cssbuttongenerator.com as an example of how to create these buttons or to actually create the button, but it gives you kind of a window into how graphics can be created using CSS rather than static images. Another thing you want to do, and this is especially true with bloggers, is use images like a pro. So if we're at a conference like this and I snap a picture of you guys with my iPhone and post it on my blog, and I use the original size if you have an iPhone, then that can be 2 megs or more of an image. And so if I go and post that full-size image on my blog, even if I use HTML to resize it, basically where you set the height and the width, you don't actually resize the actual image itself, which means that it's going to take longer for that page to load. One of the first websites that I ever optimized for speed, the main problem with the speed was their logo at the top in the header was only maybe 50 by 100 pixels wide, but the actual image itself was like 1,000 by 2,000, and they had resized it with HTML. So use an image editor to resize your images instead of using the full-size image. Don't just rely on the tools where you set the height and the width using HTML. Another thing you want to do is you want to remove metadata from your images. And this is something not a lot of people realize, is that there's additional data in your images that can bloat the size of them. There's a tool that you can use to do this on individual images called smushit.com, and you can upload your image and it'll strip out all this additional metadata. There's also a plugin that Ben's going to mention later that does a good job of this for you automatically, but you can try the Smushit plugin to just kind of get a feel again for how it works. This is another thing that not a lot of people understand the difference between, but when you can, try to use JPEG instead of PNGs. PNGs are going to look a little sharper, so if you're trying to show something of high resolution or something with a lot of detail, then you'll want to use a PNG. But most of the time you can probably get away with using a JPEG, and that'll reduce the file size and get you a little bit faster page load times. Another tip, and this is something I really like to employ when doing A/B testing, and that's basically to cheat on your A/B test. Now personally, I like doing A/B tests with purchase traffic because I can control the volume, I can control the context. And one of the things that you can take advantage of if you are using paid traffic for your A/B tests is basically circumvent the JavaScript redirect which takes place with a normal A/B testing platform. JavaScript redirects, the way most A/B testing platforms work, is the visitor arrives, the JavaScript recognizes that, and then redirects the visitor to either page A or page B. If you've ever gone to a page that's being A/B tested, you've probably realized that that redirect takes a while. So one of the things I like to do if I'm doing paid traffic is use two of the exact same ad units, but use different destination URLs. And then I make my publisher rotate those exact same ads with different destination URLs, so that way they control the A/B testing, the redirects, and that way when the visitor arrives on my site, they're not encumbered by the additional JavaScript redirect. Now you might also ask, hey look, my A/B platform, my A/B testing platform also gives me statistics to tell me which page won. Well, you can use your primary analytics package like Google Analytics to run reports that show you the conversion rates of specific landing pages. So you don't have to piggyback on your A/B testing platform to get statistics. You probably already have them through your analytics package. The point of this tip is really to just circumvent the JavaScript redirect. If you have a page that's having slow load times, one of the other things you want to do is basically recognize the mantra, when in doubt, cut it out. In other words, remove unnecessary content and graphics. And I touched on that a little bit earlier when we were talking about designs. But the main tip here is to use things like Clique heat maps, hover maps, eye tracking software to keep track of the elements people are actually using on your web pages. There's a tendency as a webmaster or a boss or whoever to fall in love with something in your sidebar or something on your page and say, I really think that my visitors like this, or I really like this, so I want to keep it on there. Don't guess, no. Use the heat maps, use the hover maps to see what your visitors are actually engaging with on your website. If you have a big image on there and they're not engaged with it, if you have a slider and they're not engaged with that, that's something that you can take out that might not hurt the user experience and might not hurt your conversion rates. I also like to use a program called SessionCam. There's a couple of other competitors that do kind of the same thing, but what SessionCam will do is take a video of people using your web pages. And it's really addictive. You'll probably sit there for 2 days watching all these videos, but it will give you a really good insight into how people are actually using your website. The other thing I want to talk about, and this is going to be heresy for some people in the room, but it's basically learn how to promote social media. And by that, what I mean is be greedy. A lot of us tend to put social buttons everywhere we can. The problem with that is you might be getting in the way of a conversion, whether it's something you're trying to sell or a merchant offer that you're trying to promote. A lot of the times it makes no sense to put a social media button up. If they haven't purchased the product, if they haven't made a conversion, why would they tweet about it? Why would they post it on Facebook? And why would you get in the way of them doing that by putting an avenue for them to be reminded that, oh, hey, what's going on Facebook? Or, oh, hey, what's going on Twitter? And all those elements, all those buttons, all those things basically create server requests, which can slow down the page, the speed of your website as it loads. The other thing you want to do is try to stay away from the embedded widgets and the plugins for social media. If you can, try to use static images. A lot of the times when we do WordPress optimization, we're trying to speed up a site. A plugin or a widget is the cause of that page taking so long to load. The static image will be a little bit better for you. And then also pick networks that make sense. Obviously, you don't need every network under the sun, so use your Clique heat maps, your hover mapping to determine which social networks people are actually engaging with, and save those server requests, save that image loading, and remove those buttons from your site. And then finally, again, just make sure to promote after the conversion, especially if you have a very clear goal with your content. After they convert, ask them to share their experience. After they give you money, ask them to share it on Twitter and Facebook. Don't get in the way of your own conversion by trying to overload them with social media when they might not have a reason to even tell anyone at all about you. Another thing you want to do is not be the Homer Simpson of plugins. This is Homer's website. I love this episode. He loaded every animated, toaster and dancing Jesus he could. And, don't do that to your website with plugins. Plugins can be kryptonite for speed. First off, they can introduce security problems, but even more so, they can introduce problems with your database. Plugins that deal with backups and things like that can basically do tons of writes to your database. That can slow down your site. They can do tons of reads from your database. That can significantly slow down your website. So you want to be cautious with the plugins that you install. When you come to a conference like this and you see guys like me get up and start talking about, I love this plugin and I love that plugin, be greedy with that. Make sure that it's going to be a good fit. And then if it's not a good fit after you test it, make sure to delete it and don't just deactivate it. Deactivating a plugin isn't necessarily enough to remove some of the negative effects that a bad plugin can have on your site. Another thing you want to do, and this is especially true for publishers that monetize through advertising, which I'm guessing most of the people in this room fall into that category, but try to avoid rotating ads that are controlled by JavaScript. Now this might be kind of hard if you're part of an ad network that's making a lot of money, but those rotating ads slow down your site. Now, obviously, if you're running an affiliate offer, you can go to the merchant's program page or program system and download a static image ad and then run that in your sidebar wherever you're going to run it if you are using those type of ads. And so affiliate programs and merchant programs are very good for avoiding the rotating ads. Another thing that people kind of tend to overlook is that an image ad is still an image. It still might have metadata and other bloated data in there. So make sure to smushit.com, your banner ads, just like you would a picture or an image that you might use on your blog. Videos can also be a source of a slow loading web page. But obviously we all recognize that videos might be helping your conversion rates. So just kind of take that into account when you're considering using video ads, that it might slow down your web page, might increase your bounce rates, it might be costing you money. And then my final tip, and I can't stress this enough, is to mobile optimize your website. The slowest experience on your website right now is probably from mobile visitors. If you don't have a mobile optimized design, you are losing money. The conversion rate of your mobile visitors compared to your desktop visitors, if you don't have a mobile optimized website, is going to be significantly less. By creating a mobile optimized design, not only do you speed it up, but you make it easier for those visitors to access your content and actually convert, actually purchase a merchant's offer, actually purchase your own product or service. And If you mobile optimize your website, you can increase your revenue without increasing your visitors by a single person. Now, normally the payback period on something like that is going to be like 1 to 2 months, but after the 1 to 2 months, it's gravy. It's free money that you are not getting right now. The way that you want to do this, of course, is with mobile optimized CSS. The old school method included creating a separate website, something like m.domain.com, and using JavaScript to recognize the visitor's browser, and then redirecting them with JavaScript, which we talked about earlier being a speed killer, to the mobile website. You can still certainly do that. There's reasons to do that, but most people these days use media query and specifically responsive design. And what responsive design does is it redesigns your page as you change the width of the screen that they're looking at it on. So if we were looking at a browser right now, and I shrunk the browser down to the width of an iPhone, we would see the mobile optimized design. And when I spread it back out, we would see the normal desktop version. There's a few advantages to this, the main being that you don't have to worry about the JavaScript discovery picking up this browser or that browser, and you can show the design that is best optimized for the screen that the visitor is looking at it on. So if there's BlackBerry or Windows Mobile or some other platform that you didn't necessarily optimize for, you would still have an optimized design for that platform. Another thing a lot of people overlook, which is a big factor in conversion rates and speed, is optimizing your form fields for keyboards. So if you're asking someone to enter a credit card number, you need to be loading the keyboard for the number pad. If you're asking them to enter their name, you need to be loading the keyboard for title case, an email address, the email keyboard, and so on and so forth. It's going to save your visitors time, which means their experience is going to be faster, and it's going to increase your conversion rates. Remember, it takes a lot of time to go back and kind of navigate through your keyboard to find the special characters, .com, and numbers that you might be needing from your different form fields. So to kind of sum up my section, wrangle your tracking scripts, pick one tracking platform, keep your designer in check, don't let them go crazy with animation and excessive graphics. Use images like a pro, smush them, use the correct size, cheat on your A/B test, offload the JavaScript redirect for an A/B test to the advertiser that you're advertising on. When in doubt, cut it out. In other words, the less elements on your page, the faster they'll load. Be greedy with social media. Don't be the Homer Simpson of plugins. Avoid dynamic ad serving. And finally, again, can't stress it enough, mobile optimize your site. If you haven't done it already, do it as soon as you get back from Affiliate Summit. Again, my name is David Vogelpohl. Again, Marketing Clique, web development, and online marketing, Tapfire mobile apps and mobile web. Those are my two companies. If you guys want to chat about either of those two topics, catch me after this presentation or later in the show. And thank you very much. Great. So as my dual role as a presenter and a moderator, I'm pleased to be able to introduce our next presenter. I've known him for a while. He's been involved with content management systems for a very long time, including managing the BBC website. He's been involved with WordPress from very early on. He's someone I respect very highly, and very pleased to introduce Mr. Ben Metcalfe.
There we go. Rather than giving you a check in the mail, can I just give you an affiliate payout?
I think that'll be okay. Yeah.
That'd be great. What a great introduction. Okay, you know what? I am going to take the option of using the hand mic. Okay, let's go. So the second part of this presentation, I'm going to dig a little more into some of the technical bits and pieces, but not too technical, so don't run off just yet. My name is Ben Metcalfe. I'm one of the founders of WP Engine, which is a managed WordPress platform. I'm going to move forward so this lady can take a photograph of me. There we go. Everyone look like, there we go. Yes, we're based out of Austin as well, and San Francisco. However, this presentation is not a shill for WP Engine. I want to make it clear that all of the optimizations, hints and tips I'm going to go through, you can apply wherever you are running your WordPress site. Having said that, We created WP Engine because we wanted to enable and take WordPress sites to the next level. Having seen that sites were now running e-commerce, running social networks, all the new things and amazing things you can do with WordPress, we really felt that shared hosting was really beginning not to cut it anymore, particularly at the higher end of things, the busier end of things. So we built WP Engine around security, around speed and scalability. And so hopefully, from that perspective, that's why I'm here to talk about things. I would say that given that we're at Affiliate Summit, that there's many people probably in the web hosting affiliate business. I would point out that we have an affiliate program. In fact, our program is the only cash-paying affiliate program in the managed WordPress hosting space. So where we're all busy trying to disrupt and move the shared hosting business on, we're the ones that can pay out some money. So if you're interested, check that out. Okay. Oh, and those are some of the companies that rely on WP Engine for WordPress hosting. So before we begin, I'm just curious. David asked a couple of questions from the audience. I'm just curious, how many people here who are running WordPress on a shared hosting environment? Put your hand up. And how many people are running one on VPS? You might have more than one, so put your hands up. A few people on VPSs. On dedicated hardware, like actual servers. Okay, these guys are spending some money. And how many people are hosting on a managed WordPress platform of some kind? Okay, well I am anyway, so that's good. Why do we want to optimize WordPress? Well, in addition to why we're all here, which is about understanding how to make conversions and how to increase conversions on our site, optimizing WordPress means that your site is going to load faster, which is just great. It also means that if it uses less resources, maybe you don't need to upgrade to the next tier of package at your web host, or maybe you don't need to buy a bigger server, or maybe you don't need to buy 2 servers just yet. So that's also about saving you money in addition to creating conversions. So I'm going to go through a couple of different levels, a couple of different steps of things that you could do to optimize your WordPress, and you would be advised to do so. Starting from really simple, that hopefully isn't new to everyone, all the way through to some more advanced stuff which might or might not be applicable to you. I would say that they're all pretty simple, there's nothing super technical, but if anything does seem a little technical, as David alluded to earlier, take those ideas away and get your developer or a freelance developer in your community to perhaps give you a hand. If you need to. So the most obvious optimization that you can do if you're running WordPress is to keep your WordPress up to date. How many people here are not running 3.5, which is the latest version of WordPress? You're all keeping WordPress up to date. Well, I see a lot of people not keeping their WordPress up to date, but that's great that you guys are. If you don't keep WordPress up to date, among the security issues, you also miss out on the fact that the code continues to be optimized. It continues to get better and use the new, more modern parts of PHP, which is, again, going to speed up your site and hopefully make the user experience better for the people you're hoping to convert. It's also going to make sure that your site doesn't get hacked, because the last thing you want is people to convert onto buying Viagra pills on some other site that you weren't supposed to be on your site. We see that a lot as well, people injecting stuff into old versions of WordPress. Okay, the next thing that is a very basic optimization that everyone should be doing is running a caching plugin. WordPress does practically no caching out of the box, but a plugin like W3 Total Cache, there's also WP Super Cache and Back Cache. There are 2 other options just to give you a flavor. By the way, all of these plugins I'm going to mention are free, they're open source, and they're in the repository. So you just go into the WP admin, go into the plugins, and just click Add New Plugin and search through. None of these are paid plugins or anything like that. W3 Total Cache is a Swiss Army knife of lots of different things, many of which just happen immediately once you turn it on without having to do anything. If I come to your site, all the PHP has to be loaded, the database has to be talked to, brings it all together, the page gets generated, it gets sent to me. That took some time. Then David comes to your site, that's got to happen all over again. Well, that's a bit wasteful. What a caching plugin will do is begin to save some of those pages so that they're just saved straight out from HTML and served out from HTML for the next person that comes by. That makes the second time the person comes a much faster experience. It also does some things to actually cut down the size of the other ancillary files on your site, like the JavaScript files or the CSS files. It'll physically make them smaller and, again, faster to send through to the person coming to visit. I would say, and I'm going to hover over here to get my glass of water, I would say that you should avoid any bad plugins. And a bad plugin is a relative term. And so what do I mean by a bad plugin? Well, for example, backup plugins. But wait, backups are good. We should all have backups. We all have backups, right? I hope so. This is not a very interactive audience today. I'm going to have to rile them up. No, so, okay. So backup plugin, for example, if you run a backup plugin within WordPress, it's taxing your web server. It's taking resources away that the server is giving your account to do that backup. And what happens if a prospect comes by and is going to access your website at that point and is ready to make a sale? Maybe your website's not going to go offline or anything, but it's going to be slower because some of that resource is being used to perform your backup. Why isn't your web host doing the backup? There's things like related posts as well, which also take a lot of time to generate every time a new page is loaded. There's different ways of doing things which will avoid a lot of the load on the server, which gives all that load all that resource of that server to anyone who comes to visit. There's also plugins that are not maintained. Check out whether the plugins you're using haven't been updated for 2 years. That's not a good sign. You can also check out whether they haven't got many downloads. If you go to use a plugin and it's only got 500 people downloaded it, then how do you know that many people have already found the bugs and are already working out where the problems are? If you download a plugin that has 500,000 downloads, chances are enough people have already reported the bugs and they're already being fixed. It may be trite for me to say it, but at the end of the day, regardless of who you get advice from, it's fair to ask, is your web host slow? It depends how much you're paying, but even how much you're paying isn't necessarily a good indicator. On shared hosting, you could be sharing a simple server with literally thousands, maybe tens of thousands of other accounts. You should ask your web host how many people are served on the same server that you're running on. And you can use tools like webpagetest.org and also Yahoo's YSlow service to actually measure how fast your page is being loaded. Take that result back to your web host and ask them why it's taking so long. You can also use the tool that we built, speed.wpengine.com. Obviously, we're biased, but we will do an independent review of your site for free, or you can use those independent tools as well. Okay, so those are pretty basic things to think about. Let's step it up a little bit. So what are things we could do that are a little more sophisticated? Well, first one is what's known as offloading. This is particularly applicable if you have a very image-orientated site. Let's say I come to your site, the page is generated, the HTML page that is, and then the browser is being told to download all these images on your page. Well, my browser is now contacting your server to get further things, now these big images. Again, anyone else coming to your website, that resource, that available resource that the web server has to share amongst anyone currently visiting the site, is now being taxed in part by all of these images it's having to send me. If you put those images somewhere else, for example, Flickr, Yahoo's photo sharing service, then the minute my browser downloads and says, oh, I need to go to Flickr over there to get the images, your server is now just humming away, waiting for the next request to come in. So it's taking the load off of your server. We often refer to that as a poor man's CDN. But you can also use a real CDN. A CDN is a content delivery network. It does two things. The first is, as I said, it offloads those images, but also things like JavaScript files, CSS files, any other files that aren't to do with the core HTML of your page. And it puts those on the CDN provider's own servers. Those servers are going to be closer to most of where your users are in terms of actually connected to the ISPs that they're connected with. And it's going to be on multiple servers. So it doesn't matter whether your user's ISP is in New York or in London or Tokyo. Because it's going to be in multiple places, those assets will be loaded much faster because they're physically within the network closer to where the browser coming to your site is accessing from. That sounds really complicated, but if you use something like W3 Total Cache, that actually will automatically play with many of these CDNs instantly. You just type in the details, and it will actually send all those images and stuff over to the CDN provider. For CDN options, you've got a couple of options. Max CDN is a good choice for folks using WordPress. We do use them, well, their parent company at WP Engine, but they are very well regarded. There's also a couple of free options if you want to go down that route. Jetpack, which is a plugin supplied by Automatic, the people that are heavily involved with making WordPress, Within Jetpack, there's a service called Photon, which will CDN your images, and that's free. You just turn it on. And there's also Cloudflare, which if you haven't checked that out, it's worth looking at. It's essentially CDN and some other security bits and pieces you can add to your website. And again, they have a free option. You can either use this all the time, particularly if you're paying for it, however, and CDNs can get expensive. You might only want to turn it on in emergencies. Maybe you get a sudden traffic spike from social media. Maybe you're going to run an advertising campaign. Maybe someone's going to be featured on local TV the next day. You can turn this on and use that to ride the wave until the traffic goes down. Hopefully your traffic won't go down, but in case it does. David mentioned heavily smushing your images, which is the service from Yahoo that's free that will take away all of the extra data within the image and leave you with the same quality image but in a smaller size. Well, there's a plugin called Smush, it's wpsmush.it. The website's smush.it. And so again, it's a free plugin. You download that, you install it once, and it takes all of the images that are in your media gallery within WordPress and smushes them and reduces their size. And any more that you upload, it will do the same. It does it in the background. You don't have to worry about it. You can also optimize for mobile. Again, as David said, the company that David runs is an excellent choice. There's also some other options. If you want to take a plugin route, you can use a plugin WP Touch. Again, if you use Jetpack, the Swiss Army knife plugin from Automatic, they have a good mobile theme in there as well. Both of these will come in and snap in when it detects that someone is accessing your site from a smartphone or tablet. If you're redesigning your site right now, something to think about is responsive design, again, which David touched on. That's when you actually have the same theme, so you're not even switching in a different theme, let alone different content. You're using the same theme, the same CSS, but it adjusts the entire page and the layout of the page depending on whether the page is being loaded, again, into a smartphone or tablet versus a large monitor. If you're having a site developed, ask your webmaster, your web designer, or if you're looking for a free or premium theme in the various marketplaces, look out for whether it's a responsive theme. It might be worth a few dollars more. Okay, finally, level 3, something a little more technical here. Again, if this is over your head, you might want to ask a developer around you or in your community or whatever to see if they can help you with these things. The first one is repairing your MySQL database. Your database is a bit like your bedroom when you were a kid, or your teenage son or daughter's bedroom. It gets kind of messy and you have to go around and pick things up and clean it up. Anyone here remember the old days of Windows and having to defrag your hard drive? Any old schoolers? Yeah, a few of you. You'd defrag and you'd sit there and watch the disk get moved around to make everything optimized. Frankly, that's exactly what we're doing with repairing your MySQL database. It's a command you run on the MySQL database, and it just goes away and does that defragging. You can do that within PHPMyAdmin if you have access. You go through, you click the different tables for your WordPress install, and there's a drop-down that says repair. But if you don't want to go in there, you're not technical, or maybe you don't have access to PHPMyAdmin, there's again a plugin called OptimizeDB. You install it, and it just goes away periodically on its own and does the repair command for you. This is probably the most technical slide in my deck. As I mentioned, PHP, when I come to your site, the web server has to take the PHP code that's within WordPress and within your theme. PHP is an interpreted language, which means it's all written in source code that you apparently can read and understand. The web server has to interpret that into something the server can understand and then run it. And it does that every time someone comes to your site. Well, that seems a bit inefficient because we're not changing PHP that often. So one of the things you can do, what's called opcode, which is when the PHP that's written has been interpreted, is actually been saved, and so it doesn't have to keep on being interpreted. And so the next time it's needed, it's already there, ready in the format that the server, that the CPU will understand. You don't need to do anything to this. What you need to do is ask your web host whether they are running an opcode cache, such as APC, which is called Alternative PHP Cache. They will tell you yes or no. If they are, that's great. If they're not, then again, you might want to consider whether that's a good place to host. If they are, and you're running the W3 total cache, it has extra routines built into it to take advantage of that optimization. Again, if you install something like that, you're going to get lots of benefits across the board. Finally, for sites that get really big, and particularly if you're running on a VPS or on a dedicated server, one of the single biggest ways you can create lots of headroom is to simply take the MySQL database and rather than running it on the same server as where you're actually serving the content from, to just simply put it on another server in the same data center. Then you've got two servers, and there's a whole server just dedicated to running the database, and then when requests come in, you've got a whole server that's just dedicated to dealing with the initial request from the web browser. Again, it's actually not that hard to set up. It just takes probably an hour or so. And again, someone who's technical, although they might have an hourly rate, you're not going to have to charge to pay that amount to get that set up. And outside of using managed WordPress hosting and other fancy bits and pieces, that's probably the single easiest and biggest capacity increase you can get. I'll take you through two fails that I see a lot in the community. If either of these apply to you, then I'll see you afterwards. First of all is don't edit the core files. The core files are the ones that run the core PHP, the key part of WordPress, sorry, that when you download from WordPress.org and you install, those are the core files. We sometimes see on forums and weird blogs people saying, oh, you should edit this thing here and it'll make your WordPress much faster. Well, if that's true, the team that look after WordPress will probably be aware of that and they would have updated it for everyone's benefit. So quite often that's just not true. And secondly, it stops you from upgrading your WordPress because if you upgrade, you'll of course write over those files. So just don't do that. The second one is Amazon EC2. Amazon EC2 is awesome and amazing, and there's many great examples of tech startups that have benefited from it, all the way through to Netflix and Zynga and everyone else. It's great because the E in it, the elastic aspect, means you can increase and decrease the number of servers that you're using during the course of the day, depending on your peak load. But that isn't any way the way that WordPress works. You're probably using just a single server on there, and that simply is not benefiting from any of the way in which EC2 allows sites to scale. In fact, EC2 instances can die at any time, so your site can go offline. So if you're using Amazon, that's probably not the best way, and you might want to use a VPS or some other more stable, non-volatile serving environment. With that in mind, I'd like to thank you. Please follow us, WP Engine on Twitter. We tweet lots of WordPress tips and things like this, which will be beneficial even if you're not customers of ours. My email address is there. Feel free to email me, and we'll be here at the front for any questions after. We're going to do Q&A first. Q&A, yeah. So I'm going to run down and replace the mic. Thank you.
Thanks, man. So while Ben's coming up here, please come up to the microphone with any questions. And while you guys are making your way up there, I'd like to do a quick poll. I heard Ben mention one word and me mention the same word, smush. Smush.
It might, is this is non, is one of them on?
I don't think it's on.
I'm just shout very loud. In my defense, I have an accent.
Okay, yeah.
So maybe, it's a British American thing, I don't know.
Great. Okay, and so our first question, and then Ben, if we could get these mics on, I don't know who's in charge of the audio.
Are these on? I guess they are on.
So then we'll just take turns at the microphone.
Sounds good.
Okay, great.
Okay, I have two, but the first one's really quick. So if you have an optimized theme or a responsive theme like Genesis, you don't have to worry about mobile optimizing, right? That's kind of an all-in-one. Is that right?
Go ahead.
Yes, so if you've got a responsive theme, then that's what the responsive part is doing, is it's automatically working out the size of the viewable area, and if it's a small, narrow viewable area, i.e. a smartphone, then it's going to lay the page out to be more optimized for a mobile. So yes, you have to make sure that if you're using Genesis and you're using a child theme, which is like a sub-theme of Genesis, that it's still also responsive,
Right.
and it isn't removing the responsiveness from the Genesis itself.
Got it. Okay, thanks. And the other was about, you said not to use a plugin for the social media, but use a static image. Does that mean just have the image itself linked directly like to your Facebook page? Is that what
It depends on what you're trying to do. I mean, certainly there are good plugins and there are good widgets. The problem that I have with that is that it puts a lot of the control outside of what you control, and it is not necessarily great for speed. But yeah, if you're linking directly to your Facebook page or your Twitter page, that's a great time to use those links. If you're trying to like auto post and embed certain types of text or things like that, you'll have to use things like widgets sometimes in plugins. But if you're just trying to link to your profile, absolutely the static images.
Okay, I think I
the
use
way to go.
both. I have like on the home page, on the main page, like,
And,
connect,
you know-
and then each post has a plugin that like puts
Right.
up each link.
So all of this is with a grain of salt. If you have a plugin, if you have a widget and your site's loading fast, ignore everything that I
Okay.
said.
Yeah, because I heard first, like, take off, or like, don't use plugins, and then it's like, well, you need these plugins. So it's kind of
Yeah,
like
and-
balanced, like, what are the ones that really should have?
And everybody that writes blog posts and speaks about WordPress optimization and speeding up websites always says avoid plugins, but we all use plugins. And there are plugins that are great for speeding up your website. So you just need to choose ones that are a good fit for you. As Ben pointed out, choose popular ones that have been updated very frequently. And if it's not causing you any problems, then you're okay. But just, if you have a lot of problems, look at that plugin list. If you got 30 of them in there, you're using 2 of them, ditch the other 28.
Okay, actually, give me one more quick one. So how do you know if you have a problem? Like, what's the standard of page loading time?
It depends on how much content's on your site. Like I said, if you're over 4 seconds, you probably have a pretty serious problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, please, Ben.
And to that question, I've got a much more boomier voice than you, haven't I?
It's the accent.
It is the accent. The website that I talked about earlier. Oh, which one was it? The one, yeah, is your host at webpagetest.org. I wanted to get that right because .com might be a porn site or something. I don't know. I wouldn't want to direct you to the wrong site. Webpagetest.org will measure your site and will actually give you a grade out of A to F or 1 to 10 or something. I'll actually give you some advice on that if you want to, yeah.
Hey, great presentations. Thanks, guys. So 2 quick questions. One is, you mentioned Photon, and that just kind of came out with WordPress Jetpack as sort of like a easy CDN, and so that seems like a really easy way to go. Have you found that that works well, or I've been getting a lot of broken images using that?
So Photon relies on Automatics, who host WordPress.com, their infrastructure, as I understand it. We don't use it at WP Engine. We actually have an independent CDN, Max CDN's parent company, NetDNA. So I've not used it in any personal capacity, but I mean it's anything that Automatic puts out on Jetpack normally is pretty good. And if it is brand new, but I think it's if there's any problems, I'm sure they'll fix it. But at the same time, if that really if a few broken images here and there is an issue to you, then that's why I would always say to people it's probably worth spending the couple of dollars to have something that is, there's someone on the end of a phone you could call up and actually have a conversation with.
Yeah, it's pretty minor. I just wondered what your impression
Yeah,
was.
in all honesty, I mean, if I host WordPress, I
Okay.
obviously have the place to host it, so
Yeah.
I don't use Photon.
So the second question, you didn't really go into, so I've been getting really, really good results just with shared hosting at certain hosting providers, but my site's getting big enough now where it's really critical to my business, and it has been for a while. So what is WP Engine doing, right, that, just what are the 3 to 5 things that...
Right, so we are only running WordPress, so therefore we automatically install and provision it for you, so therefore we actually can set it up in a way that we use, that is going to be more optimized for scale, speed, and security. So if I know how every instance of WordPress on our servers is installed, there are various different techniques with the way that the web servers are set up. We have different web servers that are tuned just for WordPress. Everything on the back end is tuned for WordPress. Whereas if I'm running a shared host where the next customer might be running a PHP bulletin board or might be running something else, I can't make these optimizations because I have to keep it open to everyone. We're also not a shared host in the sense that we are building a platform where it can be moved around the network, and therefore it's going to be able to pull more onto the different resources that we have, as opposed to just a shared host where you might be stacked with loads of customers on one box. And then because we only do WordPress, we can do things like backups that don't require using a plugin that might bring your site down, things like that. There's a bunch of different optimizations and things that we do. And the last is caching. Caching WordPress is very unique. W3 Total Cache is great. There's more that you can do, but you need to go into the server and do it at that level, which you couldn't do on a shared host because, again, it would clash with running other applications on that server.
Yeah, I've had super mixed results with those caching plugins.
Right.
Actually.
Whereas what we do is we don't run any caching plugins. Everything is built into the platform itself, because we know that everyone's running the same version of WordPress.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Ben and David. Thank you for the free WordPress plugins. Those were awesome. Now, I had a question about that tip you gave us about not editing core files. Are you talking about like on the themes, don't edit those files?
Oh, no. Core files are the PHP files that run WordPress itself. If you were to download from WordPress.org, it's like the WordPress software part.
Gotcha, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to edit
No,
those.
I
People
wouldn't.
do, and then it causes bad things.
No, okay, all right, because
But
my
you can,
question was
if
for...
you've got your own themes, you can edit them. If you edit plugins made by someone else, then of course, if they make an upgrade, it'll write over that as well.
That's what
So
you're
you only want to
saying.
write over code that you wrote or you downloaded for you to use, like your theme.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I'm guilty of editing themes that don't have custom CSS and other stuff that I need to edit. So
Yep.
thank you. for
Some
clarifying.
themes, if I was going to get really technical, some themes have parts where the theme has been built so they can be upgraded as well, so they have the same issues. So you have a functions.php file
Yes,
where you
I
can
know
put your custom functions, and then on those ones, you really should only update that file, and the rest of the theme you should also not edit. And that's the way things are going. So you need to edit less and less in smaller and smaller places. But that gets really technical, and I
The
don't want to
functions.
lose everyone.
That's cool. I get it. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello. We all deal with comment spam and trackbacks and whatnot. Do those, as they grow, slow down a site, creating bigger files on the back end, making sites slower to load?
It depends on the volume of comment spam that you're getting. What specifically is, like, how many sites, how much you're getting? What
One
tools are you
site,
using to-
I have about 6,000 spam comments, and I
A day,
haven't quite
or-
gotten around to deleting them all.
Yeah, they're text, unless you have, I guess, like the avatars or something next to the
Right.
comment. So yeah, if you have a lot of those on a page, it certainly could slow down the page. Normally I wouldn't consider that a page speed problem as much as I would consider it a usability and user experience problem. If you have a bunch of bad comments, it's more of a concern about that rather than the
They're all in
comments
the
themselves.
queue. They're not actually.
Oh, they're in
I
the
don't
queue?
approve them all. Yeah.
Yeah, the queue shouldn't, because it's not rendering those when it loads the page.
So the one thing to consider with that is if you're going to delete large amounts of things that are in the database, then that's again where you need to repair your database on a regular basis.
Okay.
Because it's the way you delete and you essentially create holes in your database that you want to bring that all together that the repairing function will do. The other thing that's interesting is if you are getting a lot of comment spam, you're probably getting a lot of people hitting your web server because those comment spams are quite often automated. And so if someone's running lots of scripts trying to work out ways to parse your pages, find how to write a comment, insert the comment, send it to the server, that's using a lot of load on your account. Your web server's having to deal with all of that, and that's obviously not really helping anyone. There's no human being looking at those requests, yet you're paying for it in the sense that your server's having to deal with that. You may also be getting a lot of people hitting your RSS feed. We see that a lot as well, where just RSS feeds being hit all the time because it's being used to pick up the new comments for the comment spam. And we just see when we have someone's website that only a small percentage of all the requests are actually to do with a human actually requesting the page. And the rest of it is spammers trying to hit the comment spam and people trying to pull down your RSS feed who aren't actually legitimate people. And there's nothing you can necessarily do about that, but when you're thinking about, oh, I got X number of visitors last month on my web host, particularly if you're using Google Analytics, which is only measuring things that were loaded into a browser, the actual number is quite possibly much, much bigger, particularly if you get a lot of comment spam. It would indicate, and it's worth thinking about then where your needs are in terms of how much capacity that you need to serve all of that.
Thank you.
So when looking for WordPress themes that are PHP friendly, SEO friendly, and like speed friendly, what are some good themes out there?
Do you want to get them?
We do custom themes. So
Yes.
I'm not really a picker of themes, but I can talk a little.
Yeah,
we can
go
talk
for
about
So, the main thing you want to do is you want to see the demo theme running in its live environment. We do a lot of custom development, so we don't normally recommend themes that people go and pick out. But the main thing you want to do is see it running in its demo mode. The one thing you want to keep in mind also when you do that is they may be hosting it at a place that's not optimized, so the theme itself might still be fast, but where they're hosting it is slow. You could also use like a platform, kind of like Genesis or DIY themes, which are both kind of optimized for speed. But I don't have like the staple of themes in the back of my head that I normally recommend. Ben?
A side comment that I always try to give out at any event like this is the one thing you should never do is type into Google themes or free themes, because nasty people will take open source themes, put malware in there and stuff like that, and then say, here's a copy of this super duper theme, but it's actually got their stuff at the bottom that's going to do things like try and rewrite your site when people come in and show different stuff. And so the way you're asking makes me think you're on the search for themes, and really you only want to be searching for themes in the official repository or at proper marketplaces like Woo Themes, who are also a client, but there's also Theme Forest, various people like that. You can also go to places like Smashing Magazine, which does lots of theme reviews. Wherever you do, you want to make sure that you're getting the theme from the original source. And a lot of these people are very good at SEO and can put their malware poison themes much higher up than the actual original theme itself.
Oh, that's good to know.
So that wasn't that wasn't your question, but keep that in mind.
That is very good to know. I've probably made that mistake a few times.
Yeah.
Really quick question. You said that you were going to have a link to the actual presentation at the beginning?
That's right, and I didn't get it. So I think Austin, who's at the back of the room, put your hand up, Austin. Austin there runs our Twitter account. I believe you're going to tweet a link at some point. So if you follow WPEngine.com, at WPEngine, not only will I be very happy, as we could do with all the more followers, but you'll also get the URL.
So just to repeat, the hashtag ASW13 with the WP Engine Twitter account. So that's all we have time for today. Oh, you have one more question?
By any chance, are you guys, WP Engine, running any deals for the Affiliate Summit?
I'll let Ben answer that question after the presentation. We only have 2 minutes left. And definitely Ben and WP Engine, we really appreciate them sharing the information on their service. And I'm sure Austin will tell you all about it too. So thanks everybody for coming out today. I really appreciate it. Please make sure to fill out those comment cards and enjoy the rest of Affiliate Summit.
We like 10s. 10's a great number.
10s. Thank you.